Here.
Bill Hanson,
Here.
Sue Rich,
Here.
Rob Hurman,
Present. Here.
and I'm here. And so that means that we're missing Travis Neal and let's see, who's the seventh one?
You don't have one.
Okay.
We don't have a 7.
Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. I got a briefing. I saw the emails yesterday. Did everybody get the emails with the decks and all that? So I'll turn it over to Beverly as she put it together and has been conversing with Maxine and other council people. Maxine was unable to be here tonight, but so we'll move forward. So Beverly, why don't you take it away and we can have the discussion. And I know you folks have probably more information on this than I do, but we'll go from there. So Beverly.
Great. So I had a meeting with the city manager and with the mayor, Maxine, and they asked me to reiterate to you that what they need for tomorrow night's meeting is strictly Indian Meadows Park. They are happy that the commission's interested in looking at all the pavilions and the fees, particularly in light of the upcoming amenities, but they wanted to emphasize that what they need for tomorrow as their starting point is to get Indian Meadows into the ordinance, because currently they're not there. So I updated the presentation, and I'll very quickly, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's not allowing me to advance. So, oh, there we go. Okay. So I added the square footages on here so you can see the 3 smaller parks are all within 100 square feet of each other. So they're all comparable. And then the Stacy Pavilion is roughly 3,000. So about a little more than double the other pavilions. So you can really see that size difference there. And then after speaking with Maxine and Barb, I reiterated the council directive, which is to add Indian Meadows to the parks fee ordinance, and for the commission to recommend a capacity cap and to recommend resident and non-resident fees. And then we went through this before, Jim. I think I shared this with you today. So this is how we go about the currently with reservations. Here's the current fee schedule. And then I'll show this next slide. These are the constraints, an overview of Indian Meadows and some of the constraints on the park and where it's situated. Then this was the recommendation from the last meeting that I presented, but there's been a lot of conversation by the commission after that. So I'm going to stop sharing, because what I've neglected to do was to put in the amounts that the commission had suggested, which are, the commission suggested a cap of 50 people for Indian Meadows Park and a fee of between $20 and $30. And then asked for the cost differential, the cost to operate, and the square foot measurements. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim, to lead a discussion on what everybody's thinking right now about those fees. And if you need me to bring up any of the slides, I'm happy to do that too, if you want a refresher or reminder on anything.
Okay, as we move forward, I know from just brief discussions with Beverly, people had feelings about the different pieces. So I will let you folks talk about your ideas and where you think we are with Indian Meadows. I'm looking at things and seeing, it seems comparable to Villa in terms of what's going on. So can people talk about their thoughts and where they were coming from the other night, and then we can move from there?
You had your hand up first.
Yeah, in regard to the square footage, I think it's simple. I think we just make it the same as Villa, cost-wise, people-wise, and we table the discussion of raising the fees for a later time.
The one thing we talked about that may change that, if the amenities around at the
Yeah,
park.
but in light of what Bev's comments are about the fees, it doesn't cost any less to clean that park than the other parks. So I think if we're looking at size of pavilion and fees to the cost to do it, we should just put it in line with the other ones, and it's much more straightforward to do that. That's just my 2 cents.
No, it makes sense. I agree.
Yeah. Rob or Keisha, you have thoughts?
Second that.
Yeah, I think I voiced my opinion at the meeting, but I think that I agree with Sue. If we're basing it straight off of square footage, then that's what it is.
Yeah, now, I guess one question that I would look at, the amenities between the parks seem to be pretty straightforward. Do we need to, as sort of a nod to the citizens, do we need to look at capacity of Indian Meadows versus the other? I realize they're the same size, but I think from what I heard was that they had some issues around parking and so forth, which we don't have quite the same thing at Villa, but although if you get 50 people at Villa, you're spilling out onto residential streets. So does that enter into anyone's thought process, or I'm willing to go along with Sue on that.
Well, I think capping the number makes no difference because they can have as many people there as they physically want to have there. The reservation is to reserve for that number of people, but nothing's to stop 100 people from showing up and using that pavilion if it's available.
Yeah.
So I think it's a moot point.
Okay. I see. Beverly, do we ever enforce capacities?
What happens when we exceed capacity, which typically happens at Stacy? The way we know that they've exceeded their capacity is the police department typically gets a call. And then whoever's on duty calls me. We go through and check the reservation, what's allowed to be there, what's not allowed to be there. So what the police department does is they ticket cars that are parked illegally. Sometimes they have to have them towed. And then if it's serious enough, if there's violations that they find there, they can do citations. Like, for example, we had a group in at Villa Park, and someone decided they were going to drive their truck up to the pavilion, and they ended up getting stuck in the mud and had to get towed out. So that person was ticketed for illegal parking in a park. And when things like this happen, we make note of the renters. So we have had people that have been egregious enough that we have banned them from ever renting from the city again. And we have a do not rent list that we maintain, and we check people against it frequently. We have right now, I believe it's 6 people that are not allowed to rent the pavilion. One is an agency. One agency is not allowed. So there are ramifications if it's an egregious enough violation.
Is it fair to say that the times you get calls are far and few between?
They are. Residents typically will report on bad behavior in the pavilions. We had a church rental a few years ago that set up an outdoor service next to the pavilion and had a loudspeaker, and they broadcast an Easter service that was a little bit out of the mainstream and talked a lot about other religions not being accurate and were a little bit offensive. And we had complaints from park users saying that they felt that was that was inappropriate, because apparently there was a lot of conversation about Jewish people being responsible for Jesus dying. And
Oh, God.
so the agency that rented it, they were in violation because one, they didn't have a special event permit, and two, they weren't allowed, that special event permit is really to guide where you can have public address systems and where they point and what the decibels are. So
Yeah.
that group is no longer allowed back.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, I would go back to Sue in terms of your thoughts, Sue, just from the perspective of we don't really work to the exceptions. We try to get something that's straightforward and at least assume that people are sane, and then move from there. So
Well, and the more variants, the more difficult it is to, in my opinion, to enforce and
yes,
keep track of stuff. You know, I don't think anyone thinks it's a good idea to make it more difficult to enforce.
well, and we
So-
leave. I'm sorry.
So I think you want to keep it simple. I know there's a parking issue, but I don't think the number, I don't know, we have to collect some data, but I don't think the number is directly impacted and with that parking issue. I think you're gonna have an issue anyway in some cases. And I don't think capping it one way or another. I mean, people know what they're getting when you go over there, you can see what the situation is.
Yeah.
That's just my common sense approach, I guess.
So
I mean-
am I hearing people say that we basically do this, keep the capacities and the fees for a resident and non-resident the same as villa? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's my suggestion.
Yes, that's the suggestion we had from the last meeting, as well. I thought, I don't, yeah.
Okay,
Well, we had split it. We were talking about tiering it.
You
But
were,
that's when I
yeah,
thought the size of the pavilion was significantly different, but they're
Right.
really not.
They're
I mean,
not.
the other thing is whatever we put in place, I hate to bring in the legalese, but it's got to be defensible, right? There's got to
Correct.
be a reason that we've done it. Otherwise people are gonna sort of poke holes in it. So I think it's just easy to keep it the same as Villa. And that issue kind of just goes away.
yeah. Yeah, I went back through the notes to look at the last time that the fees and were looked at for the pavilions. And actually, when the commission did that back in like 2015, 2016, the pavilion capacities were lowered at all the parks except Stacy. Actually, I think Stacy was lowered. No, it was not. Stacy was not. But
No, it's 250, right?
yes, but the Villa used to be bigger. Villa used to be 100 people. It was dropped to 50 because of parking. And Irvside was like 150, and it was also dropped to 100 because that felt like it was a better capacity of that parking lot at Logo School for the weekends.
so have we posted in the pavilions capacities in the past?
We have not, but that was a suggestion out of the last meeting, and we will be doing that. Right
Okay.
now, what we do is we put up the reservation and we put up the name of the party that's there and the number that's approved to be there, so that, and the time that they're there. That's the reservation sign that we post for every rental.
Well, what I'm wondering, can we put a permanent capacity?
We can, absolutely. And that was suggested at the last meeting, and I've said that we would do that. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Is there other discussion?
Just
So are
wondering
we keeping it,
if there's any, if I may, is there any best practice out there on limiting or limitations on parking?
Well, there are, every city grapples with this in different areas. So in my experience, we have had parks where no parking was allowed unless you're a resident of that street by specific entrances, and the city issued parking passes that were hung on mirrors or put on dashboards. That's not something that I believe Olivet is going to want to get into, but it is something that is used all over the United States in areas where where parking is a problem. So that is definitely something that just about every city I've worked for, there has been at least one park that has had consistent problems. Typically it's around my last city was around trailheads. People want to park and then they go off on the trails for an extended period of time, and then residents get really angry. But that's not here. That's not here.
Keisha, you were mentioning something.
Yeah. Sorry, Keisha. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna ask the question then. So are we saying if we're saying we're keeping the pricing the same, is the capacity the same? Since they're relatively the same size.
I believe that's true. Yes.
Yeah, I think capacity determines the potential for people. I mean, you can get 6 people per car. I like Sue's idea of keeping it simple, because one, it also helps both the police and Beverly's cell phone not going off if we keep it more simple. And
That's not,
also,
I don't know what you mean when you say more simple. If it's 75, if it's 50 to 100 people at Villa, are we saying that it's 50 to 100 people at Indian Meadows?
No,
That's my
Villa has a
question.
cap of
No,
50.
it's-
Keisha, Villa has a cap of 50. Burnside
So-
has a cap of 100.
So it would be
So-
50,
So is it a cap of, are we saying the capacity is 50?
correct.
that's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
And, this has kind of been bugging me. So I drove by there again today. And I think the unique thing, for better or for worse, is that Indian Meadows, again, this is my opinion, it's in the back of a subdivision
Mhm.
where, if people wanted to be conscientious, there's plenty of streets where they could park without directly impacting people. They could park a street or two away and walk over easily, and not cause a problem. If they don't do that, I mean, the residents always have the right to call the city. And I think maybe we need to, track that. And if it becomes a problem, then we address it. But I don't think we should assume we're going to have a problem up front. Unless you guys who live over in Indian Meadows know something I'm not aware of.
Well, point made. The thing I'm trying to drive at is there something we can put into the reservation system documentation, and maybe our GIS person could make a recommendation on how many cars could fit in that part of the street. And so that not only do we say there's a 50-person limit in the rental of that facility, but if you're going to rent it, we need to know how many potential vehicles would be coming as well.
I think that's going too far, in my opinion, because it could be a car for every person. That's not for the city to try and determine. I think that when we start getting into these kind of like, we're in the weeds, because the same person, somebody across the street from the park could have a house party and have 100 people with 100 cars. So, I mean, I don't think we can determine the cars.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
and people can be conscientious or not. For example, I live on a street where there's really no street parking, almost non-existent. And people that are conscientious park on Hilltop and walk, or they take the cars of the people coming to their house and they run them over to Hilltop and walk back up the block, right? And so people can do that, or people can choose not to do that. And I agree with Keisha. I think it's up to individual to make that decision. And if if there's a egregious problem, then we the police address it.
Yeah,
And-
okay,
and
so,
I didn't particularly hear the residents complaining about that as much as the noise and just who's in the park.
okay,
But maybe
Yeah.
I didn't hear what they were saying clearly, but I think they're more concerned about making sure that we're taking reservations and that we have some, you know,
some good.
that we're encouraging people to reserve it rather than just show up. And I think
I
we're
think you're-
solving that problem.
I think your recommendation says that, so I agree.
Yeah, so let's move back to a recommendation for city council. Because one, it's city council's ultimate decision. So, Sue, do you want to put your?
Yeah, so I would, so
into
my
it?
recommendation was looking at Bev's PowerPoint. Bev, can you put that up again?
Yes, yes,
The one with the 4 parks on it?
yes.
I would say we make it exactly the same as Villa.
Can you see
If
that?
we show the square footage. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
You can see that?
Yeah, but I was talking about, so 2 parts. I would make the recommendation based on the one where you have reservable April 15th to November 1, 50 people max. No special event permit, and then show 1,400 square feet. And then the fees be exactly the same as Villa and
It's
Irvine.
that one, please, put that one up, number 2.
Yes, so I would put it with this and the fee schedule that you just had up, and that would be my recommendation.
Okay, so to craft it for a motion, the recommendation would be to set Indian Meadows capacity at no more than 50. Or I think we say up to, or say at. set it
I
at
would say 50 people. I would use that
maximum.
exact language, Bev.
Pardon me?
I would use the exact language that's under Villa Park Pavilion.
Except for 1,400 versus
Correct.
1,200. And then,
Exactly.
from the fee perspective, then it would, if you go to the one that says current fee structure down on number 5, it would be the same.
Okay, so let
Correct.
me go down here. Let me do this.
And that is the exact same fee structure as Villa.
Was it 50 or 30, Bev?
30, I apologize.
Okay.
Okay,
Alright.
Oh, I'm sorry.
but
30.
here, then this would go to 50.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so
So that's my motion would be that this is our recommendation
we'll
to
take
council.
I'm gonna take this
And
up.
change
I'm gonna take off the
the
lower.
capacity.
Down at the bottom from 25 to 50.
Exactly. In the lower part of the slide.
Okay, so for your motion, you can say charge the same, that the motion to recommend charging,
Charge the same rate
charging the
as,
same rate as, I'm gonna say rates because it's multiple rates, same as Villa Park,
Yes.
set the maximum capacity at 50 people.
do we need to put in because they're adding Indian Meadows to sort of the park overview, do we need to put the specific amounts in that are showing at the bottom into the motion?
Okay, I think what I need to do is write an actual motion. Let me do that. And then you can all see it.
Well, it's a recommendation, not a motion. So I mean, I don't,
Well, you have to, the commission needs to
Approve the recommendation.
make a motion that's recommending these fees to the city council for approval. So then, and then you have to vote on it. So it would be
So
Okay,
let me ask a question before we get to that point. How are we justifying that the pavilion at Indian Meadows is larger than the pavilion at Herbside, yet the capacity is lower and the pricing is different?
Lack of electricity at Indian Meadows was my thought.
Well, I think
pricing's
also,
gotta
I
be the
think
same.
also Herbside is probably in a less residential, and they have more, particularly weekend parking, I would think.
But I don't
Or-
think if we're not accounting for the parking piece, and we're
Okay,
not
I see.
accounting for it to being in a residential, but I'm just asking the question, how do you justify? I mean, the electricity problem, I guess that's it.
That's the
Well-
only reason I can think of. Is that,
What,
you're right,
y-
just
But
by
the-
size, Indian Meadows is larger.
right,
Correct.
but
Can I-
if you look at the current fee schedule, Villa and Herbside have the exact same rates regardless
Exactly.
of their capacity. So
And we're
by
not
having
changing
Indian
that
Meadows
rate.
in there, it's right in alignment with the other two. Does that make sense?
And
So
the
we're leaving
fee,
them all the same, because on the other slide, the pricing was different. So is it wrong?
The
which
pricing was
slide?
different because the pricing was different. Well, this
Not the
slide,
one that we're looking at currently, the other slide that you just had up when everything was
there's
at the
no
bottom.
fee, there's no fees on this. There are no fees on this.
Okay,
They're all,
so, but
yeah.
that's what I'm saying, looking at this, if I was asking the question, it's a larger, so we're saying that there's no electricity, you may just want to note that somewhere. That's all I'm saying.
I think going back to Sue in terms of simplifying things, can we make a recommendation that it's reservable, it will be reservable, it will be up to 50 capacity, and the rates will be the 50, 70, 90, and 210 rates. And then go from there. I mean, I understand what you're saying is one's 1,200 and one's 1,400, but I'm not sure that that's a significant difference. But are you talking about capacity? Is that what you're talking about, Keisha? That Herbside we can get more people there?
Well, Stacy is bigger, so it's just, I mean, I'm fine moving forward with
Okay.
the recommendation as this.
I think posting it by head count is, because we realize our costs are based on cleanup versus
Okay, that does make sense because
long-term depreciation.
yeah.
I'd also kind of like to see something in there about making sure that the capacity is when it gets posted in the facility.
I'm hesitant for you to put that in the motion. I think that's a practice that we will do, but it does need to go in the ordinance. This is your recommendation for the ordinance to the
The
council?
ordinance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And we as a commission can hold you accountable for the posting.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I see a motion here to recommend Indian Meadows Park be reservable following current city guidelines with a maximum capacity of 50 people and resident rates of $30 for a half and $70 for full rates, and non-resident rates of $90 half and 210 full days. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say
aye.
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 All opposed? It's carried. So we will recommend that to City Council, and I believe they have a work session tomorrow night to discuss this, and we'll move from there. And we'll deal with exceptions as they come up.
Right. And I'd like to reiterate that you are all welcome to attend that session tomorrow.
It starts at 7, correct?
I believe so. I will double check
that's-
that for you.
And it's live at City Hall, right?
Is that in
It's live
person?
at City Hall. I'm going to it right now. I'm gonna pull it up. Hang on one second.
Yeah, I looked like an hour ago. It's 7 PM.
Yes, 7
All right.
PM in person. Yeah, so they're doing park pavilion fees and then they're doing sewer lateral.
Okay, I'm glad they're doing park pavilion fees first.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
we needed a move, someone to move the motion. And then so we got a second, we didn't get a move. If we want to
We
play
voted.
Robert's
That's true.
rules.
Yeah, you're right. There was not the chair gave the motion. You're right.
okay, I'm
I
sorry.
motioned. You-
I
Put
thought
my
Sue
initial.
made the motion.
I
Sue,
made the
you
motion.
did.
No, I
You did.
repeated it. Sorry. Okay, Sue, can you?
Sue's
using
got
the-
Should we do it again?
Yep,
Or it's
Uh,
let's
good?
go for it. Can you put it up there,
Yes,
Beverly? Sorry. My parliamentary procedure is still on vacation.
That's where I'd like to be.
It's 5-0, not 6-0.
It's 5-0.
Missing one.
oh, you're missing Travis. You're right. My bad. Okay, how does that look?
Do we need to verbally bring it up again?
Probably.
Okay, Sue, can you read the,
All right, so a motion that we recommend to the city council that Indian Meadows Park be reservable following the current city guidelines with a maximum capacity of 50 people and the same residential rates of $30 for a half day, $70 for a full day, and non-resident rates of $90 a half day and $210 for a full day as currently in the other parks.
Do you want me to add is currently in the other parks?
No, just stop at full day. I'll
Okay,
shut up.
do I hear a
Okay.
second?
I'll second it. Even
Okay,
for Sue.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? We're official. Okay, thank you. Beverly, I guess I would ask that, do we have any citizens on the line?
we do not have any citizens. I did have a process question. So would you like the other pavilions to be looking at the fees of the other pavilions and a cost comparison of surrounding cities similar to the last time we looked at the pavilion fees? Would you like that on the August agenda or would you prefer it would be on September?
I think we have a fee subgroup that can address that, and we can see whether or not it makes it to August or September.
That's perfect. So we'll defer to the fee working group and you guys figure out, and then we'll put it on based on the.
Does that work for
working
the
group's
group?
recommendation.
Does that work for the group?
Works for me.
Okay.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you very,
Okay.
very much.
Uh,
I will type all this up and give it to the city council.
As we have no other business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Second.
all in favor, press leave.
Was that Rob and Bill?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and yes.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The people have spoken.